In this video, we'll go over the plot of the 2018 Netflix original film My Teacher, My Obsession, which centers on a teenage girl who becomes dangerously fixated on her attractive new teacher. Riley finds it difficult to establish friends at her new high school after her father transfers. Chris is an English teacher. When she meets Kyla, they quickly become close friends. However, the friendship takes a strange turn when Riley learns that Kyla is obsessed with her dad, Will. Kyla successfully seduced Chris and start a twisted new life with him by removing everyone in her path, or will Kyla get to sleep with her teacher, who dies in that intense fight in the end? Let's find out. The movie begins in a dim school hallway where the janitor is sweeping the floors. Just as he's about to leave, he suddenly hears a loud bang. He follows the noise up to the locker room. He finds a young girl curled up on the floor. She looks terrified and asks him to get help. When he walks out, another girl covered in blood suddenly shows up and asks him to run away right now. Then the scene switches to a normal day at school. We're introduced to Kyla, a girl who's taking photos of everyone for the school yearbook. While taking photos, she's stunned by their new English teacher, Chris, in the same room. We also see Trisha, another popular girl at school who believes she can seduce Chris. In just 2 base in the next scene, Chris is giving his first English lecture. Every girl in the class has an immediate crush on him because he's so handsome and charming. Right after class, Trisha stops outside the classroom and starts flirting with Chris from a distance. Kyla notices this but quietly leaves. Later, she goes to the computer room at school where she meets Riley. The two girls shake hands and become friends, and that's when Riley reveals that Chris is her father. Kyla believes that by becoming friends with Riley, she will be able to get closer to Chris. So she takes advantage of the opportunity and asks Riley if she can come over for a study session tonight. Riley consents because she's new to the area and has no friends. After school, we watch Kyla taking pictures of Chris and growing more infatuated with him. When she gets home, she discovers her mother getting ready for her date tonight. That evening, Kyla plays with herself and imagines having passionate interactions with Chris. The following morning, Kyla visits Riley and asks about Chris right away when she questions why they live alone. When Riley goes to the bathroom, Kyla shares that her father abandoned her when she was only 6 years old. Riley also reveals that her mother was cheating on Chris, which led to her parents divorcing. Riley and her father then decided to move to a new place to start over. Kyla enters Chris's room covertly, sniffs his bed, and lies there daydreaming about getting beneath Chris at school the following day. Trisha makes sexual remarks throughout class, but Chris doesn't become upset with her after. Trisha isn't giving up on flirting with Chris. When Kyla sees Trisha and Riley together, she gets envious and attempts to turn Riley against her. In fact, she even tells Riley that Trisha is a dangerous girl who is infatuated with Chris. Trisha approaches Riley and tries to become friends with her. Riley doesn't believe her, so when Kyla says that Trisha has a history of having sex with school instructors, she also admits that Trisha had an after-school sex with a history teacher the previous year. Riley informs Kyla that she will soon turn 18, and since Riley doesn't know many people, Kay suggests that Riley host a birthday celebration at her house. Ka promises to bring all of her school friends to the party, so Kyla doesn't even wait a minute to start talking about Chris. She learns that Chris is seeing someone new, but she can't figure out who it could be. After making the call, the DBO rings, and Kyla is shocked to see Chris wearing a suit and holding flowers. It turns out that Chris is dating Kyla's mother, and she becomes irritated when she witnesses them making out. As a result, she accidentally throws the flowers on Chris during their big date, ruining his clothes. At the dinner table, Chris makes the decision to spend the night at their home. Kyla is enamored with Chris, but she finds it annoying since her mother is always showing her affection for him. Ultimately, she makes the decision to return to her room. Kyla knows that her mother is going to sleep with Chris tonight, so she devises a scheme to stop them in the middle of the night. Kyla bolts from her room, claiming that someone is watching her through the window. During the conversation, Kyla says she's scared and wants to spend some time with her mother. The next morning, Chris volunteers to drive Kyla to school. On the way, they make a quick stop to pick up Riley as well. Kyla is annoyed that Riley is hanging out with Trisha since she understands that Trisha poses a threat to their relationship. Kyla attempts to flirt with Chris by telling him that she's an adult who can do whatever she wants. But their moment is cut short when Riley opens the car door in the printing room of the school. Later, when Kyla confronts Riley about hanging out with Trisha, despite her warning that she's a dangerous girl, Riley becomes defensive and admits that Trisha claimed she wasn't the one who slept with the history teacher. After hearing this, Kyla becomes extremely irate and denies the entire incident. Later, when she approaches Trisha, she bumps into the locker and warns her to stay away from Riley. But that doesn't. Later that evening, Trisha gets dressed up in some sensual attire and takes some very sexy pictures of herself. The following day at school, Kyla opens her locker and discovers that it is full of all those pictures. Other students in the hallway begin to make fun of her, but Riley offers to help. Kyla then runs to Chris's office to tell him what happened, and he assures her that he will find out who did this and punish them as they approach. Riley was taken aback to find them together when he entered. In the following scene, Riley and Kyla reunite in the computer room and engage in conversation. Later that night, Kyla witnesses her mother getting ready for another date with Chris. She tries to look at Chris's phone when her mother snatches it. She reads some sexual messages from Trisha's mother and becomes enraged. She accuses Chris of using his students for pleasure and dumps him, demanding that he leave her house right away. However, when he gets in the car, she goes in and initiates physical contact with him despite his resistance. She eventually succeeds in seducing him at first, and the two have a passionate automobile date. When Kyla returns to her room, she is ecstatic because she accomplished her wish, and that's when we learn that Kyla was the one who texted Chris using a burner phone. The following day, posing as Trisha, she continues to approach Chris at his table in class, but Kyla abruptly ends their flirtatious exchange. The police then storm the classroom and take Trisha away. It appears they discovered the phone used to text Chris and Kyla's pictures in her locker. Now that Riley's birthday celebration has finally arrived, before creeping up to Chris's bedroom and seducing him once more by kissing his neck, Kyla gives Riley some gifts. As they get close to getting down, Riley enters and is horrified to see them nearly nude. She flees the room, and Chris follows after her, but she leaves the house when Chris decides to go look for his daughter. The following morning, we find Riley texting Kyla's mother, telling her what she observed the previous night. Meanwhile, Chris tries to mend his connection with Riley, but she refuses to chat after class. Kyla interrupts him and lies, saying that Riley is an alcoholic. Cal's mother storms into Chris's office and gives him a hard slap across the face for having an affair with one of his students. Riley confronts her father about everything and wants to know why he was hooking up with Kyla. Kyla responds that she is a grown woman who can make her own decisions and that she and Chris are in love at home. Riley takes Kyla outside to scold her. Riley pardons Chris in this poignant moment after Chris apologizes and vows that it won't happen again. When Trisha shows up, Kyla reveals that she was set up and that she began hitting herself severely, even breaking her finger to make the whole thing seem real. Kyla knows that she needs to come up with a new plan the following day, so she calls Trisha to meet her before school starts. While Kyla is being treated at the hospital, Riley informs Kyla that she is unable to maintain her relationship with her father. Kyla consents and asks Riley to take pictures for the yearbook at tonight's basketball game before she leaves. Kyla cries out for help and claims that Trisha attacked her. Trisha is arrested once more. Kaya asked Riley if she might see Chris one last time before saying goodbye, and Kyla took that as a chance to inform Chris that Trisha is no longer with them, allowing them to spend time together. When Chris hears Kyla reminding him that he will have to see her every day in class, he decides to quit his job and go back to the hospital to pack his things. They witness an enraged Kyla stealing a scalpel from a hospital and making an escape. It turns out that Kyla came to school at night, knowing that Riley would be there. She then goes to Chris's class and threatens him with a scalpel, telling him that they are meant to be together. In the meantime, Riley manages to get up and seek assistance in the classroom. Chris and Kyla engage in a heated argument, during which Kyla attacks Chris. After the janitor ran into Riley in the hallway, Kyla approached him from behind and silenced him. Riley and Kyla then got into a fight in the hallway, and Riley eventually knocked her unconscious. In the movie's final scene, both girls were taken to the hospital in ambulances. Months later, Chris and Riley had moved to a new place to start over. Chris hits his head on the table and passes out. Riley is heading off to college, and Chris is excited about his new teaching position. However, as Riley is leaving, we see a hooded figure emerge from hiding outside Chris's house. Is this Kyla? And is she still obsessed with Chris? Regardless, the moral of the story emphasizes the significance of realizing that relationships, especially those between teachers and students, should be professional and should not cross certain boundaries. The movie also highlights the risks of unhealthy obsessions, showing how they can destroy relationships, put oneself in danger, and cause others to suffer as well. Misunderstandings and a lack of understanding are frequently the result of poor communication. The movie might act as a helpful reminder of how crucial it is to communicate honestly and freely, particularly in complicated situations like that between a teacher and student. A significant moral lesson conveyed in the movie is that all actions have repercussions, both good and bad. Choosing the wrong path or disobeying the law can have a serious negative effect on a person's life, as well as the lives of those around them. For this movie summary, let us know in the comments below how Riley would defend your father against an obsessed student. If you liked this video, click play now. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and watch all of the videos on my channel. Thank you so much.